How many marshmallows would it take to cushion a free-falling car? Imagine this. You're staring at a bag of marshmallows enjoying their squishy softness when a bizarre question pops into your mind. Could marshmallows cushion the fall of a car dropped from a great height? And if so, how many would it take? Let's jump into this fluffy experiment and calculate the unthinkable. First, let's look at the car. The average car weighs about 1.5 tons or 3,000 pounds. For simplicity, let's imagine the car is dropped from a height of 30 meters, about 100 feet. At that height, gravity accelerates the car to a speed of about 24.2 meters per second by the time it hits the ground. That's roughly 54 miles per hour. A significant impact. Next, let's talk about our squishy heroes. Marshmallows. A standard marshmallow measures about 4 cubic centimeters in volume, weighs around 5 grams, and can compress significantly under weight. For this calculation, we'll assume a marshmallow can absorb 1 pound of force before squishing completely flat. Now, let's calculate the total impact force of the falling car. In simple terms, force equals mass times velocity, divided by the time it takes for the impact to occur. The mass of the car is 3,000 pounds, or 1,360 kilograms. The velocity of the car is 24.2 meters per second when it hits the marshmallows. The time refers to how long the marshmallows can extend the impact duration, which we'll estimate at 0.2 seconds. When we put it all together, the total impact force comes out to 163,200 pounds. That's the amount of force the marshmallows need to absorb to cushion the car safely. Now comes the fun part. Since each marshmallow can absorb 1 pound of force, we'll need 163,200 marshmallows to handle the impact. But that's not all. We also need to calculate the volume. Each marshmallow takes up 4 cubic centimeters, so 163,200 marshmallows would occupy 652,800 cubic centimeters, or about 23 cubic meters. That's the size of a large swimming pool filled with marshmallows. What about the cost? A bag of marshmallows containing around 250 pieces costs about $3. To buy 163,200 marshmallows, you'd need 653 bags, which would set you back just under $2,000. Not bad for a fluffy safety net. So there you have it. It would take 163,200 marshmallows to cushion a free-falling car from a height of 30 meters. How many piano keys would you need to create a bridge across a river? Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a river, and instead of a regular bridge, you picture something much more musical. A bridge made entirely of piano keys. But how many keys would it take to make this harmonious crossing? Let's strike the right notes and calculate. First, let's size up the river. An average river, like the width of the Thames in central London, spans about 250 feet across. That's our target distance for the bridge. Now let's talk about piano keys. A standard piano key is about 8.75 inches long and 2.5 inches wide, giving it a surface area of 21.875 square inches, or approximately 0.15 square feet. For this calculation, we'll focus on the length of the keys, which is 8.75 inches, or about 0.73 feet. To determine how many keys we'd need to span the 250 feet of the river, we divide the length of the river by the length of a single piano key. So, 250 feet divided by 0.73 feet equals approximately 342 piano keys laid end to end. But we're building a bridge, not just a single line of keys. To make the bridge wide enough for people to walk across, we'll need a width of about 6 feet. Each piano key is 2.5 inches wide, or 0.21 feet. To create a 6-foot wide bridge, we divide 6 by 0.21, which equals approximately 29 piano keys laid side by side. Now, to calculate the total number of keys needed, we multiply the length, 342 keys, by the width, 29 keys. The result? 9,918 piano keys to construct a bridge wide enough and long enough to span the river. What about weight and strength? Piano keys aren't exactly built to support people, so we might need to reinforce the bridge by stacking additional layers of keys. If we add a second layer for stability, the total number of keys doubles to 19,836 piano keys. And then there's the cost. A replacement piano key costs around $2 on average. Multiply that by 19,836 keys, and you're looking at a total cost of $39,672. Quite the investment for a musical walkway. Now imagine the sight, a gleaming bridge of white and black keys stretching across the river, creating music with every step. crossing the bridge wouldn't just get you to the other side, it would turn the journey into a performance. So there you have it. It would take 9,918 piano keys for a single layer bridge, or 19,836 keys for a reinforced version. How many pygmy marmosets would it take to weigh as much as a gorilla? Imagine this. You're watching a pygmy marmoset, the world's smallest monkey, scurry along a branch, and a curious thought pops into your head. How many of these tiny monkeys would it take to match the weight of a mighty gorilla? Let's swing into the numbers and find out. First, let's start with the gorilla. A fully grown adult male gorilla, also known as a silverback, typically weighs around 400 pounds, or about 181 kilograms. That's one seriously strong primate. Now, let's focus on the pygmy marmoset. These tiny monkeys weigh about 3.5 ounces on average, which is just over 0.2 pounds, or about 100 grams. To put that in perspective, a pygmy marmoset weighs roughly the same as a deck of cards. Here's where the math comes in. To figure out how many pygmy marmosets it would take to match the weight of a gorilla, we divide the gorilla's weight by the weight of a single pygmy marmoset. So, 400 pounds divided by 0.2 pounds equals 2,000 pygmy marmosets. That's right. It would take 2,000 pygmy marmosets to equal the weight of one gorilla. Let's put that into perspective. If you gathered 2,000 pygmy marmosets, it would be like a tiny monkey parade stretching through the treetops. Or imagine them all in one big pile. It would be a mountain of fluff and cuteness, but also a logistical nightmare to feed. Now think about their size. Each pygmy marmoset is about 6 inches long, not including their tails. If you lined up 2,000 of them nose to tail, they'd stretch over 1,000 feet, about the length of 3 football fields. And let's not forget their diet. Pygmy marmosets primarily eat tree sap, insects, and fruit. Feeding 2,000 of them would take a forest's worth of snacks. So there you have it. It would take 2,000 pygmy marmosets to equal the weight of a single gorilla. How many slices of pizza would it take to cover the surface of the moon? Stick around to the end for the ultimate cheesy answer. Alright, imagine this. It's late at night, you're scarfing down a fresh pizza while staring at the glowing moon outside your window. And then, the question hits you. How many slices of pizza would it take to cover the surface of the moon? A question that every space-loving pizza enthusiast has surely asked themselves at least once. Let's dive into this out-of-this-world math problem. First, let's get some numbers. The moon has a surface area of about 14.6 million square miles. That's roughly 37.9 million square kilometers if you're on the metric system. It's not exactly small, it's about a quarter the size of Earth after all. Now let's talk pizza. The average pizza slice is approximately 14 square inches of cheesy goodness. That's about 0.09 square feet, or 0.0084 square meters. You can already tell we're going to need a lot of slices to pull this off. Next, we need to convert the moon's surface area into the same units as our pizza slices. 1 square mile equals 27.9 million square feet, so the moon's surface is a mind-blowing 407.5 trillion square feet. Time for the fun part. Dividing the moon's surface area by the area of one pizza slice. We take 407.5 trillion square feet and divide it by 0.09 square feet, the area of a single slice. And the result? Brace yourself. You'd need 4.53 quadrillion slices of pizza to completely cover the moon. To put that in perspective, that's about 1 million pizzas for every single person on Earth. NASA might have to call up every pizzeria in the universe to make this happen. So there you have it. 4.53 quadrillion slices of pizza to cover the moon, enough to feed an intergalactic pizza party. How many helium balloons would you need to lift a Cybertruck? Stick around to the end for the high-flying answer. Alright, picture this. You're at a party with a bunch of helium balloons, and as you tie one to a chair, a wild thought crosses your mind. How many balloons would it take to lift something a bit bigger? Let's say a Tesla Cybertruck. You know, because who hasn't daydreamed about flying trucks? Well, buckle up, because we're about to float into some fascinating calculations. First, let's figure out the weight of the Cybertruck. Tesla's website claims the base model weighs around 6,900 pounds, or roughly 3,130 kilograms. That's about as heavy as an African elephant or 5,000 party-sized bags of chips. So yeah, it's not exactly light. Now let's talk helium balloons. The average helium-filled party balloon has a diameter of about 12 inches and can lift about 14 grams of weight. That's less than half an ounce, barely enough to lift a large slice of pizza. So how do we figure out how many balloons we'll need? First, we need to convert the Cybertruck's weight from kilograms to grams, since the balloon's lifting capacity is measured in grams. There are 1,000 grams in a kilogram, so the Cybertruck weighs 3,130,000 grams. Next, we divide that by the lifting power of one balloon, 3,130,000 grams divided by 14 grams per balloon? And the answer? You'd need a jaw-dropping 223,571 balloons to lift a Cybertruck off the ground. That's nearly 250,000 balloons. To put that into perspective, if you tied all those balloons together, you'd have a floating bundle the size of a small building. It's safe to say you'd want to avoid power lines if you ever tried this stunt. So, there you have it. 223,571 helium balloons to lift a Tesla Cybertruck. The next time you're at a party blowing up balloons, just imagine the sheer number you'd need to take your ride into the sky. How many grains of rice would weigh the same as a panda? Stick around to the end for the wild answer. Picture this. You're in your kitchen, pouring out rice for dinner, and your brain drifts to the image of a giant panda munching on bamboo. Suddenly the thought strikes, how many tiny grains of rice would it take to weigh the same as one of those black and white fur balls? A completely normal train of thought, right? Well, let's dig into this rice-sized math mystery. First, let's look at the panda. The average adult giant panda weighs about 100 kilograms, or 220 pounds for those using imperial. That's about the size of a compact refrigerator, or enough bamboo to fuel a panda's daily Netflix binge. Now let's turn to rice. The average grain of uncooked rice weighs about 0.02 grams. Yep, that's 1/50th of a gram per grain. These things are tiny, but don't underestimate them. They add up quickly. To figure out how many grains of rice would equal a panda's weight, we need to convert the panda's 100 kilograms into grams. Since there are 1,000 grams in a kilogram, the panda weighs 100,000 grams. Now for the fun part, dividing the panda's weight by the weight of a single grain of rice. That's 100,000 grams divided by 0.02 grams per grain. The answer? It would take a jaw-dropping 5 million grains of rice to match the weight of one panda. For some perspective, a 1 kilogram bag of rice contains around 50,000 grains. So, you'd need 100 bags of rice to equal one panda. Imagine carrying that through the grocery store checkout lane. So, there you have it. 5 million grains of rice to match the weight of a single panda. Next time you're cooking rice, take a moment to appreciate just how many of those tiny grains would add up to something as massive and adorable as a panda. How many pencils would equal the length of Route 66? Stick around to the end to find out just how many you'd need to connect this historic highway, pencil by pencil. Alright, Route 66, the legendary road stretching across the United States, connecting Chicago to Santa Monica. Known as the Mother Road, it spans a jaw-dropping 2,448 miles. That's over 3,900 kilometers of road trip goodness. But what if, instead of asphalt, you decided to pave the entire length of Route 66 with pencils? Let's break this down and see just how many pencils we'd need. First, let's get the numbers on the pencils. The standard pencil is about 7.5 inches long, or 0.625 feet. If we're laying these pencils end to end, that's the length we'll use for our calculations. Now let's deal with Route 66. Its total length of 2,448 miles needs to be converted into feet, since we're working with the length of a pencil in feet. There are 5,280 feet in a mile, so Route 66 is 12,889,440 feet long. That's already a big number, and we haven't even added the pencils yet. Next, it's time to calculate how many pencils it would take to match that distance. We take the total length of Route 66 in feet, 12,889,440 feet, and divide it by the length of a single pencil, 0.625 feet per pencil. And the result? It would take a staggering 20,623,104 pencils to cover the full length of Route 66. Let's put that in perspective. If each pencil costs 10 cents, you'd be spending over $2 million just to buy the pencils. And if you laid them all out, you'd have one of the most unique highways in the world, albeit one you wouldn't want to drive on without a very good suspension system. So there you have it, 20,623,104 pencils to stretch across the entire length of Route 66. Next time you're cruising down the road, just imagine it lined with millions of pencils pointing the way westward. How many balls of yarn would it take to wrap around the entire Earth? Stick around to the end for the ultimate knitted answer. Alright, let's set the scene. You're working on your latest scarf when you suddenly glance at the globe and think, could I wrap the entire Earth in yarn? An ambitious question for any knitter. But hey, we're here to answer the big questions. Let's grab our calculators and get started. The Earth's circumference at the equator measures 24,901 miles, or 40,075 kilometers. That's a whopping 131,480,000 feet. The starting point for this gigantic project. The average ball of yarn contains about 120 yards of material, That's 360 feet per ball, so each one is a decent stretch of fiber. To wrap the Earth, we divide the total distance around the planet, 131,480,000 feet, by the length of one ball of yarn, 360 feet, and that equals, drumroll please, 365,222 balls of yarn. So you'd need over 365,000 balls of yarn to wrap the planet in a single layer. But wait, who wants a single strand of yarn? If you wanted to double layer the Earth for warmth, you'd need twice as much, bringing the total to 730,444 balls of yarn. And if you wanted a cozy 3-layer wrap, you'd need over 1.09 million balls of yarn. That's a lot of trips to the craft store. If each ball of yarn weighs about 3.5 ounces or 0.22 pounds, the total weight of all that yarn would be 80,349 pounds. That's about 40 tons of yarn, roughly the weight of 10 elephants. Let's say a ball of yarn costs about $5. Wrapping the Earth would set you back a cool $1.8 million. Hope you've got some knitting sponsors lined up. So there you have it, 365,222 balls of yarn to wrap the Earth once, or over 1 million balls for a truly cozy planet. Next time you're crafting, just imagine how many scarves you'd need to circle the world. How many hours of Guitar Hero would it take to burn 10,000 calories? Stick around to find out. You might need some serious endurance for this one. Alright, let's set the stage. You're deep into a Guitar Hero marathon, fingers flying, strumming like a rock legend. But what if, instead of aiming for a high score, you aim to burn 10,000 calories just by playing? Could you actually shred your way to a full-blown workout? Let's crunch the numbers and find out how long you'd have to keep rocking. The number of calories burned during Guitar Hero depends on how intensely you play. Strumming, button pressing, and even some enthusiastic headbanging all add to the burn. Based on estimates for playing guitar, an active Guitar Hero session can burn around 150 calories per hour for a person weighing about 175 pounds. So, how long would you need to play to burn a massive 10,000 calories? If you're burning 150 calories per hour, you'd have to play for a mind-blowing 66 hours and 40 minutes straight. That's nearly 3 full days of non-stop Guitar Hero action. You'd probably need a snack break, or a few hundred. And if you wanted to pull this off in a single session, you'd be challenging some of the longest gaming marathons in history. For some perspective, 10,000 calories is roughly the same amount of energy as 40 cheeseburgers, 18 large pizzas, 200 chocolate chip cookies, 500 cans of soda. And let's not forget, Guitar Hero isn't exactly a cardio workout, so staying awake and keeping up your hand coordination for that long might be an even bigger challenge than burning the calories. Plus, your fingers might just give out before you get through the fire and flames on expert mode. But if you really want to burn 10,000 calories, there are a few ways to speed things up. You could jump around while playing, turn it into a full-body dance session, or even switch to Just Dance and double your calorie burn. But at that point, are you still playing Guitar Hero, or are you just in a rock concert of your own? So if you're looking for the ultimate endurance challenge, grab your guitar controller, fuel up, and prepare for the longest jam session of your life. Just maybe take a few breaks. How many Jenga blocks would it take to recreate all 3 pyramids of Giza? The 3 main pyramids in Giza are the Great Pyramid of Khufu, the biggest, originally standing 481 feet tall with a base of 756 feet. The Pyramid of Khafra, slightly smaller at 471 feet tall with a base of 706 feet. The Pyramid of Menkaure, the smallest, at 213 feet tall with a base of 356 feet. Each pyramid has a different volume, which we need to calculate. Khufu's pyramid has a volume of about 91.5 million cubic feet. Khafra's pyramid has a volume of about 74.3 million cubic feet. Menkaure's pyramid has a volume of about 8.5 million cubic feet. That gives us a total volume of 174.3 million cubic feet for all 3 pyramids combined. Now let's talk Jenga. A standard Jenga block is 1.5 centimeters tall, 2.5 centimeters wide, and 7.5 centimeters long, which converts to about 0.000025 cubic feet per block. To find out how many Jenga blocks we need, we divide the total volume of all the pyramids by the volume of a single Jenga block. And the final answer? To rebuild all 3 pyramids of Giza, you would need an unbelievable 697 billion Jenga blocks. That's nearly 700 billion tiny wooden pieces stacked together to form the ultimate Jenga monument. And let's talk weight. Since a single Jenga block weighs about 9 grams, the total weight of all these blocks would be over 6.2 million tons. That's heavier than the weight of 17 Empire State Buildings. Imagine trying to play a game of Jenga with that setup. So there you have it, 697 billion Jenga blocks to recreate all 3 pyramids of Giza. Next time you play Jenga, just remember, you're only a few hundred billion blocks away from making history.
Subscribe for more and drop your wildest ideas in the comments. I'll do the math for you.